Okay, well, welcome everybody, and I want to go through just a couple of items from last week, and make sure everybody's still on board, and then talk about a couple of new items and links, and then I want to go through the case study for tonight, and then um, a little bit with the portfolio. But other than that, it'll probably relatively short night, so we'll just get a move on. Hey, Ellie, how are you? Welcome. All right, let me mark you down.
Hi.
We're just getting going, so perfect timing. Okay. So, couple of items. Zoom meeting room. You now have the Zoom classroom link. So I know a couple of you in the daytime and in the evening, for some reason, the Zoom classroom link wasn't working. So I fixed that. I know you can access the Zoom room multiple ways. There's been an announcement, and then it's the same number every time. But anyhow, if you click the Zoom classroom link, it should take you right in. And let's see. Hey, welcome, Casey. And yep, Zoom classroom link. We just got started, so that's one way to get in. And then course calendar we looked at, weekly units, and again the Zoom class sessions. Those are the archives of all of our little meetings together. So week 2, we've got the first Tuesday sessions, and then the Thursday afternoon session are in there. Now, just a couple of items from week 1. You guys made it through week 1, which is excellent. And I know there are a lot of new terms and a lot of things rattling around in your brains. So just know that over the next 14 weeks or so, you're going to be seeing those terms frequently. So I wanted to mention that I entered in grades yesterday and this morning. So please take a look at the grade book. If you did turn anything into the grade book for Unit 1, I haven't done any grading yet for this week's stuff, but for week 1, if you turned something into the Dropbox yesterday evening after about 8 or 8:30, I haven't graded that yet. So but the Padlets should be in. I did want to mention too that with the Padlets, there were 3 anonymous entries. So make sure you look at your grade book, and if you're positive you did a Padlet entry and you don't have a grade for it, please go back in and look at the Padlet and see if maybe you were one of the anonymous entries. And if you were, that's fine. Please let me know. Shoot me an email so I can make note of that and give you the grade. And then moving forward, please remember to put your name in your Padlet comments. Let's see. So those should be in. What else? Oh, the lab, and they were excellent. All of you did well on those. So keep it up. Again, you want to refer back to those as needed during your travels and journeys through the week's units. So those videos, again, they generally go through the content related to the objectives that we're trying to achieve. So the visible body assignment was also extremely well done by all of you. There were a couple of kind of, I don't know, common missteps along the way that I saw, maybe from maybe about a quarter of the ones that I graded. The proximal distal is usually the one that gets students the most. Again, when we're talking about proximal, it relates to being closer to either the shoulder or closer to the hip, and distal being further away from the attachment at the shoulder or the hip. So I think it was the elbow is proximal to the wrist, and if there were a few distals in there. But anyway, other than that, some of you really the goal was to kind of get you acclimated to some new terminology and seeing some different organ positioning and understand a little bit about body cavities, and that we do have these multiple layers. Hi, Stephanie, and little one. Multiple layers, depending on what cavity we're dealing with. We're going to have parietal and visceral layers, which I'll speak to again in just a second when I talk about the portfolio. But yeah, just getting you acclimated to some new terms and some new ideas, and also to see that there are some multiple answers that are possible for some of these items. And when I mention to put what structure, generally I'm thinking of some sort of an organ or a gland or a tissue, so more of like a macro structure. But yeah, those were very well done. No visible body this week. This is about, I think, our only week that we don't do anything with visible body. So next Thursday, we'll be back into the visible body mode in regards to cells. So you do not have any visible body activities this week. You do, however, have an activity in regards to kind of a lab portion. We're going to look at a case study here in a few minutes. Portfolios, those were also excellent, which I would expect. The consistency from the lab exercise to doing the portfolio was evident. A couple of items I wanted to mention. For the part 4, many of you put a few items in there about kind of, your anxieties and your fears and also your loves, and why you chose to do what you're doing with school and the paths that you're on. And I'm always amazed at the diversity and variety of different answers that I get for those. And all of you come from backgrounds that are extremely varied regarding your exposure to A&P. A second, there we go. So anyway, some of you are fresh out of high school. Some of you haven't been in school for 20 plus years. Some of you are grandparents. Some of you are grandchildren. So anyway, it's quite a variety of students every semester, and some of you have bachelor's degrees in biology, and some of you, like I say, are fresh out of high school, and you had a high school biology class maybe, and that's about it. So anyhow, know that you're in good company. And the other thing too, the what body systems that you look forward to, or that you prefer or enjoy, the majority of the answers for that was like nervous system, and so cardiovascular, of course, is one that nursing and medical students really like. Some of you are PTAs, and so muscles and bones appeal to you. One thing I found interesting that usually isn't the case, but this group and my daytime group both, I saw that the digestive system isn't very appealing to several of you. So, well, I'm going to fix that this semester. I'll make a different system one you don't like, but digestive's my favorite, but don't tell, so you don't get points off if you don't like digestive. I'll just work harder to get you to like it. So actually, my background is all in orthopedics in the clinical side. So nervous system, muscular system, and skeletal system were my bread and butter, 25 years ago when I got into this field. And over time I grew to really appreciate and love digestion. And so, because again, so many of my issues with my patients had to do with consumption problems and pH issues, inflammation that isn't going away no matter what we do. And it relates back to some of their nutritional habits and certain foods having inflammatory properties. And so, you really are what you eat. And so it's pretty fascinating. Oh, no, you're right on time, Lori. Welcome. So I'm just going through kind of summarizing. I did all the grading yesterday and some this morning, and summarizing kind of what I saw, some of the themes that were consistent. So anyway, I'm going to move on from that. The last thing from the portfolios, again, when we look at these membranes, you had that little case study toward the end. We talked a little bit about it at the end of class. A couple of you had questions about it. But yeah, the diaphragm is a solid, thick muscle that basically is a complete dividing wall between the thoracic cavity and the abdominal cavity. So those two cavities are separate. So if we have abdominal fluid or peritoneal fluid in a chest tube, that's a problem. There's a breach in the diaphragm somewhere. It's been punctured or something. So the other thing about the layers, very last question, the visceral layer. Whenever we see the word viscera, we're thinking organ. Okay, we're thinking whatever it might be, whether it's the heart, the lungs, but we're thinking viscera is just an umbrella term for organ. So if you know any deer hunters, they eviscerate the deer, right? They don't. Some of them eat the organ meat, but even if they do, they still take the organs out. But viscera means organs, and so the visceral layer is the layer, the serous membrane layer that is right up against the organ. Okay. And then the parietal layer is going to be more superficial or above that. If we have damage to the parietal layer, but not the visceral layer, maybe the organ has been saved or isn't injured or damaged, but we're talking about micron, tiny millimeters of space, right? So, I mean, if the parietal layer is damaged, it's likely the visceral layer is damaged, even more likely than that the organ is damaged. So that question was kind of a crapshoot. So I don't know if what I just got done saying made any sense, but I think it will at one point. Yeah, if the diaphragm performs 75% or more of your ability to draw in oxygen, and the serous membrane that surrounds the lungs, the parietal layer is actually connected with the fascia of the superficial portion of the superior portion of the diaphragm. So you have the diaphragm kind of like this, and then this serous parietal layer of the lungs kind of connects with it, and then you have the lungs kind of sitting in there. So when the diaphragm flattens out, it actually draws the lungs down with it. And what that does is it increases the volume of the lungs. And so we see a pressure drop in the lungs. And so air moves from high pressure to low pressure. So as the pressure in the lungs decreases, air is going to rush in. So the diaphragm's compromised, you're not going to be able to increase the volume of the lungs. Therefore, you're not going to be able to decrease the pressure, and da 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 da. So yeah, not good if the diaphragm is dysfunctional or not compromising. And the nerve that supplies the diaphragm is coming up out of the around the C2, C3 vertebral spinal area, and so a really high neck injury above that C3 area is going to also potentially compromise the diaphragm's ability to function. So anyhow, exams were good. I also wanted to mention too that, so anyway, portfolio is awesome. Overall, the exams, again, I wanted to pull that up as well. Exam one, you're going to, I set it to unlimited attempts, so you can take it as many times as you want. It'll be open until the end of the semester. And it will keep the highest score. Now, again, it wasn't the exam I was planning for you to take. The one I was planning for you to take is right here. It's the exam 1B extra credit. I didn't limit it though to a 40 question extra credit exam. I put I think around 60, 65 questions or so in there, worth a half a point apiece. So when you if you want to, and I would suggest you do, take that extra credit exam. First of all, it's not timed. You can take it an unlimited amount of times, but it does close on September 20th. You have about 10 days to do it. They're half a point a question of extra credit. So the maximum you could get is around 30, 32. That's a lot, 30, 32 extra credit points. So, but when you're reading through it and you're answering the questions, like I said, I think I said on Tuesday, you're going to be like, yeah, no, this is that must be the one we were supposed to take. And it is. This is much more in line with the slideshow, with the objectives. So I do apologize for that. In 20 plus years, that's one of the first times, maybe the first time that anything like that's happened. So hey, all right, you guys got to be privy to it. So anyway, I'll make it up to you. You can take this till you get a 40 out of 40 as far as I'm concerned, and then you can add another 30 possibly on top of that. So I don't offer a lot of extra credit opportunities, so take advantage of this one. Oh, and by the way, the reason I'm closing it on September 20th is because currently it's showing up as an actual test score and an actual part of your grade. So it'll populate it as part of your score, your overall score. Well, I don't want it to do that, but I can't make exams extra credit. I can't set them like that, unfortunately. So what I have to do is close it on the 20th, and then I'll have an extra credit column, and I'll just move whatever points you have for that extra credit exam. If you got 30, then I'm just going to put a 30 in your extra credit column, and then I'm going to delete the exam out of there. So your total points possible will go back to what they should be, but you'll still have a bonus of 30 points. Okay, so anyway, hopefully that makes sense. It will. You'll see your grade spike after you've taken that extra credit exam after the 20th on the 21st. So a couple things in the chat. Right, but yeah, I will. COVID-19, yeah, 2020, exactly. That's a great scapegoat. I know a lot. COVID-19 has been, if nothing else, an easy out for for us when we screw up. So I know a lot of businesses that ship stuff are delayed in their shipments, and that's their excuse. I don't know why making shutters for someone's house is delaying, why COVID would delay that. But anyway, that's not my issue. That's my neighbor was telling me about that. So anyway, that's that for exam 1 and 1B. Exam 2 is in there. It's ready to roll as well. That one is also 40 questions randomized, but I think I trimmed the bank. It's only about 55 questions in the bank. So these are straightforward. They're going to go in line too with what we've been doing. And again, you may have to refer back. I hope you do refer to your notes or whatever resources you need. Okay. All right. So let's get a move on and discuss any questions. We're good. Okay. If you do, again, put them in the chat or just chime in whenever you feel like you need to. So let's see. We're going to go into week 2. And again, as I stated on Tuesday, I trimmed out some of this stuff so it's not so much. So just follow right down the line, directions for this section. The Padlet link will take you right out to the Padlets. And again, remember, you have these 4 hyperlinks over here that'll also take you to all of this stuff. So the drop boxes and the exams. So anyway, key terms we had the outline as well. So let's take a peek at this case study. So this is what your kind of your visible body, instead of visible body this week, this is what you're going to be doing instead. And I think you'll find it to be a little more appealing and certainly a lot less intensive. So I'm not going to, I'm going to kind of summarize it for you. I want you guys to read it on your own and come up with your own responses. But I want to give you some kind of a heads up and kind of where I'm hoping you'll go with it. And again, I also wanted to remind you too. I opened this and it opened up like this. So when you click hyperthermia case study, it's going to probably open something like this. Again, you can either download this as a Word document, type right into it, put it in the Dropbox, or you can open it with, which is what I did. I clicked open with Google Docs, and that pulled me into here. Again, from your perspective, you won't be able to do much with this or edit this, so you need to go over to File. Oops, my little people screen is in the way. So you need to go to File and go to Make a Copy. So you get your own copy, and then you can start typing right into that. Okay. Phone is dead. Oh man. All right, Naomi. I'm glad you stopped in and yeah, watch the recording. Thank you for coming in and hope to see you next Tuesday. And email me if you have questions. Okay. Oh, an anonymous chameleon's in here. So, well, that's good. Um, so, so like I said, just click File, Make Copy, and then it's all yours. You'll get your own. You can type right into it. So you can take notes now as we go. Again, know that this is being recorded, so you can go back in and watch it. The afternoon session is also in there. We go through basically the same stuff. So if you feel like I'm going too fast or if you feel like you missed something, either stop me and let me know. I'll repeat myself or explain it differently. Or like I say, you can go back and watch. There's a little typo in here. This E, I'm going to get rid of that too. That's a degree. It shows up as a capital E instead of the little degree symbol. So, but anyway, we've got a lady living in Houston in the middle of July. And again, if you're unfamiliar with Houston, probably good for you. But if you are, it's very hot there. It's very muggy. And the middle of July is not a place to be. Middle of any day is probably not the place to be, but definitely not middle of July. Temperatures above 100 and extremely muggy down there. It's right on the coast or right near the coast of the Gulf of Mexico. So anyway, we've got a lady running errands and she stops by, checks on her mom, who's 84 years old, and she's not doing too hot. And normally her mom, Marion, is pretty healthy. Today, not so much. Marion, she's elderly. Elderly people are weird sometimes about air conditioning. We've had it up here, even in the middle of summer. Every year, there's a handful of elderly people that fall out because they refuse to turn their air on or they just don't have it. So we got to keep an eye on them because, as you see in this case study, they're a little more susceptible to basically heat stroke. That's what hyperthermia is, a type of heat stroke is a type of hyperthermia. There are other types of hyperthermia. We can see drug-induced hyperthermia, anesthesia-induced hyperthermia, hyper stress, situational induced hyperthermia. But this is kind of like an environmental hyperthermia due to heat exposure, excess heat exposure. So anyway, so Janice, she's a little bit panicked, not too bad, calls 911. Mom's a little bit, she's conscious, just a little delirious. So anyway, 911 operator says, get some cold water going on her, spray her a little bit, get a fan, and we'll be there in a few minutes. They get there and take her away, and she gets some IVs, and she's fine. Right. So luckily, daughter, being the good daughter Janice is, she stopped by and checked on mom, and if she wouldn't have, would be a different story likely, because heat stroke and hyperthermia are potentially deadly. So thankfully that all went down. So then? So you can read through that on your own, get a little more info, but that's kind of the gist of it. The case background tells us a little bit about what hyperthermia is. Again, basically body temperature, the body is unable to keep its 98.6 temperature. So it's taking on excess amounts of heat and it can't release the heat. So we have a thermic or a temperature situation that is in the excess. Remember, whenever you see hyper, it means too much or in excess of, and hypo means not enough. So we've got a problem with temperature, and emia, we'll see, or thermia. Emia, we'll see later. Then generally is like a blood condition too. So this can affect certainly circulation, right? The heart rate, blood pressure, everything is affected. This is like a systemic problem. So so anyway, it discusses, thirst, fatigue, profuse sweating. All right, so we'll talk about that in just a few minutes as well. We're losing water, we're losing electrolytes. Again, can often be fatal, especially if we get above 109 degrees. Now, hyperthermia could be, like I said, could be pathogen induced too. I mentioned drug induced or anesthesia induced. It can also be certainly fever, right? We've all had fevers before. What if that fever doesn't break and it's hovering again? That can be deleterious to multiple systems, and particularly the brain. So the first question discusses, it wants you to discuss what is homeostasis. So all of you at this point have heard that term. It has to do with the body maintaining balance. So we're seeing body systems working together to maintain balance, and it's the nervous system that participates in a huge portion of that homeostatic mechanism. So, how does it relate to hyperthermia? Well, remember with and use these terms, homeostasis, and how does it relate to hyperthermia? Well, for this situation, we have our set point, right, at 98.6 degrees is our normal set point. So we have what are called thermo receptors in our skin. They're also called cutaneous. You've maybe heard like a cuticle. Cutaneous always means skin. You may have seen cutaneous membrane when you were looking at membranes, but we'll see this term cutaneous again here in about 2 weeks when we get to the skin. But we have cutaneous thermo, which means temperature, receptors or thermoceptors. These thermoceptors are picking up the sensory of heat and cool. They're picking up temperature outside of the body, and they're sending that information to the brain. So the receptors, again, they're going to be thermoceptors in the skin or the cutaneous membrane. The control center, of course, is the brain, specifically for temperature regulation. We would think of the hypothalamus as being, and it says it right up here, thermoregulatory center in the hypothalamus. So that's the control center, the specific spot of the control center. So for hyperthermia, the thermoreceptors are going to pick up that it's excessively hot. They're going to send a signal to the brain saying it's excessively hot. So the brain is going to then trigger some sort of effectors to kick in. For this situation, remember, effectors are usually muscles or glands. So for Marion, we're going to see sweat glands as the primary effectors for hyperthermia. Okay, so what's the problem here? Well, mainly our bodies are 98.6 because we're not always sweating, right? It's not how we release heat. Hopefully you're not always sweating. Some folks are, and if they are, it could be a physiological issue, hyperhidrosis. Okay, so but we sweat usually when we can't do something else or if we're nervous. But heat moves from high temperature to low temperature. So 98.6 in here. Okay, usually the heat in here is greater than the heat out here. especially today, right? So 98.6 out in here, it's 55 out here. Well, it's not, it's probably 68 in my basement. But so anyway, heat moves from high temp to low temp. 70+% of all the heat that your body is generating internally leaves via what we call radiation. Okay, radiation is a physics concept that simply means heat moves from hot to cool. So why do you have so much heat internally? Well, all of your physiological processes, your heart beating, your liver, and your entire digestive tract assimilating nutrients, your lungs inflating and deflating, your kidneys filtering, secreting, doing so. Your brain processing information. Your bodies are creating a lot of heat. So we don't want to retain all of that heat. We want to lose it. So generally it just radiates off of us. Okay, 98.6 goes to where it's less than 98.6. What's the problem here? It's more than 98.6 outside of the body. So 3/4 of the mechanism that we have for releasing heat is not only dysfunctional, we are now reversing it. Now we're taking on the heat. So that 101 degree temperature or 102 degree or whatever outside the body is now traveling, and your body's taking it on, and you're unable to radiate heat off. So that's where, so the brain hypothalamus picks that up. It triggers your sweat glands to just open up, and you'll start pouring sweat. This happens normally, right? Especially on a really hot day. If it's over 100 degrees outside, and thankfully we don't really see that terribly often here, but if it is, and you go outside in that, you're going to start sweating profusely, because again, you can't radiate heat even by not doing anything. We've all been in that situation where you walk outside, you're not even doing anything, and you're pouring sweat. That's because, again, the temperature, even on the thermometer, the temperature could be 92 degrees, but the heat and the amount of radiation and UV radiation that the sun is pumping down on us, usually the temperature that we're actually being exposed to is greater. So anyway, that's a problem for elderly people. That segues us into number two. Elderly people have some issues. Uh, do some people radiate more heat than others, or are they just dehydrated more? Well, some people do radiate more heat than others, simply because I think they're metabolically more active. So your chemical reactions in the body, that's metabolism. So folks who have maybe like a higher metabolic rate might radiate a little bit more heat. So sure, and it's situational too. You in this situation may radiate more heat than in a different situation an hour later. So it fluctuates, and that's what the brain is kind of like monitoring, is like, what type of fluctuation is going on with the temperatures, how much and if it's the opposite situation, right, with we see heat radiating off, especially in the winter, right, the colder it gets, you can even see steam coming off of you, right, especially like football season, right? The guy's sitting on the bench, he takes his helmet off, and you just see it almost look like smoke. It's just steam coming off of their heads. Again, that is simply because the temperature difference is so dramatic, and their bodies are like, their heart rate, blood pressure, their sympathetic nervous system is kicked in, so they're creating a lot more heat anyway. And then if it's really cold out, you can even see the heat radiating off of them. Um, possible. Someone that sweats more, some folks have more sweat more than others. Could possibly be because, yeah, their ability to radiate heat is not as good as it should be, and so they sweat more. It could have something to do with the nerve. Always everything goes back to the nervous system, but yeah, like when we're under anxiety or nervousness or tension or stress, Stress increases heart rate, increases blood pressure, thus it increases friction and increases heat in the body. And so that's why we sweat more when we're under stress. And so yeah, someone who's maybe sweats more than someone else, maybe they have a little bit more anxiety, or they have more stress internally and situationally, and so it triggers the body to release sweat as another way again of getting rid of heat. So yeah, there's a lot of variables, right, with each and every one of us, and it's even in taking this into the clinic, right? Like Mr. Smith today, and Mr. Smith today an hour from now, and Mr. Smith today 2 hours from now, we could get three completely different Mr. Smiths. So it's not a matter of saying this patient is this patient is this right now. What's this patient over here in 10 minutes or in 2 weeks or whatever. So, and that holds true for all of us, right? So we, depending on situations and circumstances, we don't know much of anything about our patients, right? We have to believe what they tell us, and we look at the chart from the past, and, we're assuming they're straight shooters and telling us but we know they're not always. And so that is another variable that we have to wade through in the clinic. So just know that, it's we do get the real story with diagnostic tests usually. You could tell me all you want, but we're still going to draw blood and have you pee in a cup and do these other things, right? So anyway, yeah. Let's see. So, number two then kind of segues into the why are elderly who have generally poorer circulation, right? Why are they more susceptible to heat exhaustion or heat stroke? Well, one thing is hydration, right? If my main source of releasing heat is through sweat, I'm losing a lot of water, right? That assumes then that I have the water to lose. Well, if elderly who are naturally more dehydrated anyway, right? Elderly people are just more dehydrated. That's just, we all are going to go through it as we age. Our organs just dry up, and so they don't have as much water to lose when it comes to sweating. And so then they can't radiate heat off of them. They can't sweat the heat out of them. That's a problem, right? So dehydration is a big deal. Medications too, right? Elderly people are usually on a battery of medications that affects sometimes their ability to regulate temperature too. We generally think too of elderly folks as yeah, they're home, they're like saunas, right? You walk into yeah, they always they get so cold so easily. They're wrapped in blankets and their hands are shivery, and they're retaining as much heat as they possibly can. And then as it gets hotter and hotter and hotter, they may not even recognize it. That's the other thing, right? And so you walk in, you're like, whoa, I'm sweating just pulling into the driveway. You can see the heat coming off of the roof, and you're like, "Eesh." So you better get in quick and check on grandma. So, you get in and you're like, yeah, you better crank the air down, or if they don't, a lot of them don't even have it, or they get edgy about it. So we can spritz them. And so kind of like a cat, right? Being naughty, you got to spray them. So anyway, they probably have cats too, right? Elderly people they like their animals. So we got to be, yeah. So anyway, so yeah, poor circulation, that's a dehydration issue. Their hearts nothing's working like it normally would. They have metabolic disorders. A lot of elderly people are diabetics too. I mean, the list goes on. You could put anything, right? If we could remove suffering, heat exhaustion, and heat stroke, we could pretty much type in any ailment and it would apply, right? Elderly are just more susceptible to stuff. All right. So anyway, why would spraying water do anything? Why did the 911 operator suggest that? Why would we suggest, and even put them in front of a fan? This goes back to our some of our properties of water, right? Where one of those properties is it has that ability to take heat away as it evaporates. We call it evaporative cooling. So if I spritz your skin with water droplets, the heat that's coming from the body is going to basically get pulled out by the water droplets, and it's going to evaporate and take the heat with it. So and that certainly the fan is going to promote that and kind of speed that up. Now I do want to caution you too in these, if you're ever faced with these types of situations. They happen with little kids. I've had this happen with little leaguers, right? They're out there, they're getting kind of 12, 11 years old, and they're falling out because they've been on the field for all day and it's super hot and they're not hydrated, and maybe they're juvenile diabetics. I mean, we don't know, but this can happen in any situation. And so one thing we don't want to do is we don't want to immerse them in ice cold, like we don't want to go from frying pan to meat locker. We don't want to go that extreme of a route. Okay. We want to, the spritzing of water, the patting them down, a washcloth. We don't want to cover them up with it. We want to put it on, move it somewhere else, dab it, because, if you're putting it on them, there's nowhere for anything to go. The droplets can't evaporate. So we do want to avoid certain things like that. We certainly aren't going to immerse them in a tub of ice cubes. You wouldn't want that anyway, and let alone, that'll shock them. It'll probably kill them. So, yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Oh, yeah. The blood pressure, heart rate, they go from up here because their body's under stress, right? The brain, when it gets that temperature, like it's 104, the brain goes into sympathetic mode. It starts increasing heart rate, increasing blood pressure, increasing sweating. All these things are going on. And for grandma, shoot, she may have a heart rate of 40 and a blood pressure of 105 over 60 anyway. And so any stress is going to put it maybe into normal range, but you shock her back, it could affect them in a bad way. So we do want to be cautious of the extreme in which we treat their heat. All right. So, and again, why number 4, you guys know the answers to this. This is all in we talked about it in the last slideshow. Why is water so important? What are some of the properties of water as far as maintaining homeostasis? We've talked about a few of them right now, right? We need, our organs need hydration, so because they go through so much friction. And because of this amount of friction, if they're not hydrated, then it's going to cause inflammation. And chronic inflammation, acute inflammation, is still going to trigger a sympathetic response. And if we have chronic inflammation conditions, oh man, these are the types of things where dehydration is a big deal for people with chronic inflammation. What do you do with a fire? You put water on it. What's inflammation? It's a fire somewhere, usually a lot of fires. And we have specialized chemicals in the body, that anti-inflammatory chemicals that get triggered. We have inhibitors, we have promoters, we have this cascade of hormones that are flooding whenever we have inflammation. And this can lead to all kinds of new set points. We're seeing it with COVID-19 and some of what it's doing to the respiratory system. It almost becomes like an autoimmune disease, like your immune system gets triggered into this inflammatory condition, right? You've got a virus and that triggers an inflammation. The body wants to make the environment inhospitable for the virus, so it cranks up the temperature. And in addition to that, we're seeing a flood of different anti-inflammatories and pro-inflammatory. We see what are called pyrogens. They create a fire. Those come in first. And then after the fire, we have to bring in the anti-inflammatories to kind of settle things down. Well, with COVID and certain other or autoimmune diseases, we see it with lupus, we see it with MS, something gets triggered and the immune system, and then the immune system kind of goes rogue and it won't shut off. And so you've got they'll the lungs get filled up with mucus. They're unable to function. They can't distend, and they can't expand, because the immune system alarm went off, and it doesn't turn back the reset button doesn't get hit. So hydration is a big deal. It can prevent so many things. And then again, lastly, number 5, it kind of goes back to number 1. We've got our set point. We set our thermostat at a certain number in the house. In the summer, for instance, so we set it at whatever, 74 or 72, and if the end is 76, if it's an if it's my parents' house, it's like 82 is what their thermostat set at, honestly, in the summer. Yeah. So I got to check on them, because you walk in their house, it's nuts, and they like it. They think it's fine, and they save money, even though they have plenty of money. So nickels and dimes for your life. It doesn't make sense. So, but anyhow, I set mine at about 74 at the most in the summer, maybe 75. And as soon as the temperature in the room gets above 75, we'll say, that's the sensor, right? That's the stimulus it's getting too hot. So sensory gets sent down to the control center, to the brain, and it triggers the HVAC system to kick the air conditioning on, and then the air conditioner kicks on. That's the effect of all of this. So the cause is it's too hot. The effect is, well, let's cool it down. So soon as the temperature gets back to 75, another signal is going to go back to your HVAC unit, tell your air conditioning to shut off, and then we don't have to listen to it. We don't have to feel the draft, and everything's fine for, I don't know, half an hour or 2 hours, depending on the time of day and time of the season. Furnace works the same way. Whatever you set your furnace on, or your thermostat to, okay, once it gets below the temperature you've set it at, it triggers the furnace to kick in. Once it gets back to, so our bodies do the same thing, right? We've been talking about temperature comes in and says, oh, it's 104 degrees out here. We need to well, what happens when it gets back to normal? Well, we turned grandma's air conditioner on. We spritzed her with some water, got the fan going, gave her some water to drink, maybe a little bit of juice or something, just get her kind of faculties back. So then the brain, then the thermostat gets it, that, oh, now we're back to normal. Brain gets the signal, tells the effectors they can stop. So now the sweat doesn't keep pouring out, right? It's just like you go outside, it's 102, you sweat profusely, you go in the house, it's 72 degrees. Your brain gets the message and tells your sweat glands, stop sweating. You don't need to sweat, because we're able to cool, everything's cooled down. So anyhow, that's how you're going to do those 5 somewhere, something like that. Yeah. Yeah. We make them come here. Yeah. And they, and they, yeah. Anyway. Yeah. That's fun. We're going to be those guys someday too, right? I don't know. We're too good for that. We're smart, right? We take A&P and we know how things work. So we don't fall into those traps. All right. So anyhow, sweating. Okay, good. You pull in the neighborhood in the winter, right? And the snow on the road, and their whole house. I mean, it's just like, wouldn't even know it snowed. They're like in a bubble, like a heat bubble. So, all right. So let's see. I need to stop picking on the elderly. I'm really not. I love them. All right, so let's see. We're just looking out for their best interests. That's all. Remember, a teacher becomes pupil, and our parents, they don't like to admit that, do they? They're always the teacher. They're always the parent, and so when we become the parent of them, we're stuck. I've got young kids. I've got old parents, and I have to parent both ends of that spectrum. I just, my kids are out of diapers and my parents are going to be in diapers. So I'm hoping that's not the case too, for a long time. But so anyway, let's go back into our weekly units. Okay, portfolio. I just want to mention a couple things in here. I want to look at again. You click on. So again, if you have questions on the case study, just shoot me an email. Rewatch the video. Um, if you're a real glutton for punishment, right? You'll rewatch the video. Let's see. So chemistry portfolio, I click on that, it's going to pull this up. Again, you can either download it as a Word doc or you can open it as a Google Doc, which I've become accustomed to. I've been a Microsoft Word guy for forever. Going back to college, we did have computers when I was in college. We didn't have the internet, but we did have computers. Uh, Not typewriters, actual computers that printed things off in a giant printer. But so anyhow, yeah, so anyway, Google Docs and Google Slides, just over the last year or so, I've become more acclimated. I really like it. So, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but I'm telling you, if it seems a little weird now, it may not as time goes. And I know more and more instructors are using it. So again, you want to open your own, make your own. Oops, I did not. I'm trying to move. Get done. Trying to move this out of the way so I could scroll this down. All right, so the chemistry portfolio 2 is going to look a lot like what you did earlier with portfolio 1, just some definitions. Most of these you have access to in your notes or in your outline. Some of them you don't. Some of them you're going to have to look up and research a little bit. The Google machine will work. And again, when you're doing your definitions, clear and concise, they're for you. I read through them, I scan over them, but truly this experience is your experience. So how you're going to do it and what you're going to link this term with this definition, sometimes it's best to define a term with another term. And you saw that certainly with some of the directional stuff. You see the word anterior, you could define anterior by just saying front. Or posterior, you can define with back. So keep that in mind. You guys are getting into medical. You want to do a lot of word association and linking things up. You don't necessarily want to get dragged into long drawn out definitions of stuff. So and then the next section, straightforward, you have your 6 functions of water in your slides from Tuesday, as well as in your outline. 3 examples of carbs, lipids, and proteins. Again, you can either give me examples of types of foods that are related to this. You can do both. You can give me foods and give me the sciencey macro molecule. You could say glucose, fructose, galactose, or lactose. You give me those words. The oses for carbs, and for lipids, we're looking at like OLs, like glycerol or triglycerides, HDLs, LDLs, types of lipids. But you can put foods, butters and creams and all the yummy stuff. Proteins, same thing. You can give me examples of proteins. You can give me you can use words like peptide, polypeptide, amino acids relate to protein. So anyway, again, it's your experience. So how you do it is totally up to you. There are right and wrong answers, of course, like an apple is not a protein necessarily, but so anyway, essential minerals. So you may be able to just rattle those off right now. And remember, when you hear the word electrolyte, they're oftentimes talking about minerals. Electrolytes are charged particles, right? They're ions. So if you go right down the line, and calcium, magnesium, potassium, zinc, iron, those are minerals. Okay? If it comes from the ground, from the dirt, it's going to have minerals. So anything that grows out of the ground is full of good minerals. The darker color it is, like like that, this deep green, like broccolis, all the yummy stuff that our kids love, broccolis and Brussels sprouts and turnip greens and collard greens and kale and spinach. Kale's yummy. All that stuff's yummy. If you know how to prepare it, and you only need butter and a little bit of salt, and maybe some pepper, and you're good to go with a lot of that stuff. Got to have your butter, real butter too. Don't get that plastic stuff, that margarine. Um, so so anyway, minerals. You're getting it. Sweet potatoes, right? Full of good nutrients, good minerals. You don't have to do anything. You go to the store, you buy the sweet potato, you go home, turn your oven to about 375, take out a baking sheet, don't do anything. Just throw the sweet potato in. You don't have to poke it, you don't have to prod it, you don't have to foil it. Just put it on a pan, walk away, come back in about 70 minutes, and that thing will just pull right out of the casing. And oh man, a little brown sugar, maybe a lot of butter, brown sugar, some more, and some honey maybe. Oh dude, I'm telling you, that is like nature's medicine right there. That is a pill and a potato. That's the best multivitamin you could get, is a sweet potato. You could eat one a day. um, Essential amino acids, again, essential amino acids, so pay attention to that. Don't put non-essential. I won't dock you or anything, but just pay attention to that term. We have 20 amino acids or so. About half are essential. Essential means you have to consume them. The thing about proteins is 10 amino acids are non-essential. So your body does recycle protein. 10 amino acids. The other 10 are what they call essential. You have to get them in the diet. So look those up as well, or they might be in your outline. Structure of an atom, you can even draw it if you want. You can just describe it as, protons and neutrons in the center, electrons, orbiting around it, some definitions. Again, all of this is in your stuff. So apply what you've learned. Again, a little bit more info. Some of this may get into a little more detail of looking ahead. Some of these, there's a few here looking ahead to next week. There might be one or two up here that may seem a little weird. That's okay. I'm not asking you to, reinvent the wheel or anything, but if you want to poke ahead and kind of look at, we're segueing our chemistry this week right into what you see here. We're going to start talking about cells. We're going to talk about cell transport, diffusion, osmosis, the cell membrane, transport proteins. It may sound like a lot. It's a lot of weird words already. So don't run out of the room. Don't X me out or end the meeting. Just, you'll be just fine. We'll get there. But these are just teaser trailers. If you want to, if you feel like, not turning away from the trailer and maybe getting a little further into it, that's what that is. If you don't fill these out, I'm not going to hold it against you. Okay. The looking ahead to next week is, I'm not here to burden you, but I would like you to see that these pieces link up together. That's all that is. Okay. And lastly, analyzing the content deeper. I'm going to have you do a little bit of clinical stuff here with four of the main minerals, or four of the main ions that we find in the body, or electrolytes: sodium, calcium, potassium, and then chloride. So you can see there are four of those. Role of the body. Again, you can just Google it. You may already know. I would still check. Anyway. But what's the role that sodium plays in the body? Why do you need sodium? Right? I mean, a lot of you have heard low sodium diet is good. The sodium is bad. You don't need sodium. Watch how much sodium you consume. That's all fear mongering. You need sodium. You don't need buckets or truckloads. You don't need buckets or truckloads of anything. You don't even need a truckload of water, but you do need sodium. If you're low sodium, even that's like telling a diabetic, do not consume sugar. Diabetics need carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are your primary source of energy. Are we going to inhibit a diabetic from having an apple or having grapes or having some sort of glucose? We can't. They just have to monitor it better. They have to be more aware of how much they're consuming and what types of sugars they're consuming. So we never want to say, there's that never. For the most part, we want to avoid saying things like never consume sodium, never consume carbs, don't do this, don't do that. Okay. I'm here to tell you, don't do that. Don't think that sodium is something that you need to completely eliminate from your schema. It's something that you need. So I want you to find out why. Why do you need sodium? Now, what happens? And you're going to do that for each one. Why do you need calcium? Why do you need potassium? And why do you need chloride or chloride ions? Why do you need? Why do you need these four items? Okay, so look those up. Why? Just role of sodium in the body. Okay, and then while you're there, or you could just Google these terms too. Before you do, though, I just want to break them down real quick. Again, we see this prefix hypo in there, and we see the prefix hyper. Hypo, for those of you who haven't had med term, um, okay, whenever you see hypo, it's lower than, less than, below, not enough of. Okay, whatever it's describing. Okay, hyper means excess of or too much of. Okay, which you probably know, right? Hyperactive kid. There were some of those in our classes, right? When we were little, the kid with it was hyperactive, excessively active. That's all it means. All right. Emia, that's a suffix. You guys see that one? EMIA, emia. You're going to be smart, aren't you? You probably already are, you little bugger. If you're listening to any of this, you're going to rule the world someday. All right. So emia, that means a blood condition. Okay. Emia, a condition of the blood. So we have not enough something having to do with the blood. So that's when we go to our root, our combining form, and our root right in the middle. Natro or natria has to do with sodium. You notice Na is the chemical symbol. That has to do with the German word for sodium. I think is natrium. So anyhow, hyponatremia, that simply means a blood condition that doesn't have enough sodium. That's all. That's a long word and a mouthful, but as you see terms throughout this semester, not just diseases or disorders or pathologies, any term for the most part, you can possibly start breaking it down and seeing the word as more than just a bunch of letters put together. And I've got to memorize this long group of letters. Don't approach it that way. Approach it as, I can break this word down. Does it have a prefix? Does it have a suffix? Not all words are going to have a prefix, by the way. Most are going to have a suffix of some sort, and all of them are going to have some sort of a root. So as we go, I'm going to be circling back every single time we're together to medical term and understanding what these mean and breaking these words down. It'll make your lives in the clinic so much easier when you can see these terms. I could make up a word, put it out there, and if you know the word parts and what each of those suffixes, prefixes, and roots mean, you can tell me what I'm trying to say or what the definition is. So hypernatremia, too much sodium in the blood, or a blood condition with too much sodium. Okay. Usually, when we look at the suffix, we kind of put that in the front with our definition, like arthritis. Every one of you have heard of arthritis. And in fact, you've probably heard of a lot of words that end with itis or itis. That means inflammation of, which you probably all knew anyway, but inflammation of the joint, for instance. Arthur means articulation or joint. So arthritis, we take the itis, put it in the front as the definition, inflammation of a joint. So anyway, that's kind of your med term tip of the week, I suppose, is looking and breaking down and analyzing these words. Does it have a prefix? Does it have a suffix? What is the combining form? What do these mean? So we can come down now, we can do these other three without any trouble. Calci, we see that it means calcium. Hypocalcemia, a condition of the blood involving not enough calcium. Okay, condition of the blood with too much calcium. Okay, what are the consequences of those? All right, and then kalemia. There's that K for potassium. Again, it's not hypopotassemia. Kalemia is kaleo is the potassium root. So we see KAL for that. So anyway, a blood condition, not enough potassium. Blood condition with too much potassium. And then lastly, chloride. I don't know what happened there. My CL disappeared. Chloride is kind of like calcium, where we've got the term, the root goes with, those are nice when that happens. We had a 50-50 deal. We had roots that actually made sense, right? Chloro is the root for chloride. Okay. Kalimo or calio or kaleo or kalo is the root for potassium. Natrio is the root for sodium. Yeah, but calcio is the root for calcium. So anyhow, they're not always as cut and dry. So it does take time. It takes repetition, just like anything. You see them over and over. But hypo always means below or less or not enough. Emia always means a condition of the blood. All right, that's it. You don't have anything in part 5. If I could scroll down, you could actually see part 5 typically is some sort of a patient scenario that you already do a patient scenario this week as part of your lab portion or visible body portion. That's it. I don't have much else to discuss with you. Exam 2 is in there and ready to roll as well. So work on your work on your Padlet, work on your case study, work on your portfolio. Take your time too on the exam. Again, it is timed, but you don't have to worry about it. Just look at each question and think clearly and thoroughly, and look through your notes, Google it. Look through your book, whatever you need to do to make sure that you're seeing everything correctly and reading the question correctly. Next week on Tuesday, we're going to start in on cells. So I'll probably by Sunday afternoon or evening, I'll have week 3 up and ready. Again, there's no hurry for me or for you. You just keep working on chapter 2 and week 2, and then week 3 will be ready for us on Tuesday when we meet up again. So having said that, you guys are doing excellent. We're getting through this micro stuff. You're getting a lot of new terminology. I don't want you to get too overwhelmed with the chemistry. Just take things piece by piece from your outline that you have, as well as from Tuesday's discussion. So anyhow, next week, cells, we're going to talk about chemistry a little more. We're going to see carbohydrates and glucose, especially. We're going to see proteins and amino acids again. especially protein. Protein and amino acid, that's going to be a theme throughout the semester, and it's going to be a theme throughout next semester. So again, if this is all seeming new, if it's seeming overwhelming, that's totally normal. It's totally understandable. Just trust yourself, trust the system, and everything will continue to fall into place as long as you're doing your part with what we're doing together week to week. So and again, email me, let me know when you hit a roadblock, or maybe you just need a pep talk. Just let me know. All of you are here for a reason. I read through, and some of you, I know those reasons. The rest of you, you know why you're here, and so stick to it. Your lives will change in ways that you can't even imagine by having the knowledge you're gaining from this class and in your future classes. Your track or your pathway may change throughout your life or in life, but one thing you always will have with you is this knowledge of anatomy and physiology. Use it not just for your skills in nursing or in PTA or surgical tech or whatever field you're going into medically. Use this information for your own personal lives. Use it for your family. Use it for your loved ones. They are going to be relying on you. They're going to be counting on you and looking to you for advice and for help and for assistance, because you have knowledge that they do not regarding the human body. And your knowledge today is just the tip of the iceberg, and that iceberg is massive. So just stay with it. Don't get upset or frustrated along the way. You're going to have times. I have students, even in advanced, they've heard this talk, they've walked this walk, and even still, there are times in advanced or in some of their other nursing classes, or even just in life, where sometimes you just got to release, right? You got to let it all out, and maybe bawl your brains out at the kitchen table over your textbooks, and then go outside and take a walk or light one up or whatever you need to do to calm down. But have a drink, have a drink of water, take a shower, whatever it is you need to do. Don't deny your needs for self as well. So you have a lot of balls to juggle. All of you have family. You can't take the family ball and throw it off to the side. You're going to have that one forever. A lot of you, if not all of you, have a job or multiple jobs. You're going to be juggling family and job the rest of your life. I can juggle two balls. It's a little bit rough sometimes, but you throw me a third ball at me. For you guys, it's school. That then we start dropping, and we have to set things down, right? So it's okay. And sometimes you have to set all three of them down and just go take a nap. So and if that's, or go for a drive, to put the headphones on and go back into the Wayback Machine and turn some tunes on that maybe you haven't listened to in years. Put on a cool YouTube video, Google some of your favorite musicians or movie clips or whatever, and just shut everything off. Or even if it's 10 minutes or whatever you can get yourself, you deserve it. You've earned it, and don't let anybody ever tell you any different. So so take care of your biz, and it'll take care of you. Yeah, spinning. Yeah, yeah, spinning plates. No kidding. Yeah, I like to put that that the circus afro circus, the Madagascar 3, that old circus music. Put my rainbow wig on, and really, the put 3 rings in the living room, and yeah, that's our lives, right? It's and uh, we're strong, and that's what keeps us moving forward, right? The all that variety, and we wouldn't know what to do with ourselves if it was any other way, right? So you guys are taking on a new challenge, and it's amazing to see the growth that occurs from last week to this week to next week, and by Christmas time, man, there's a big fat present under the tree, and you can't see it, but that's the knowledge you gained this semester, and what you're going to do with it moving forward. So So yeah, keep spinning those plates, keep juggling those balls. You can't put them down. You can occasionally, but usually when nobody's looking, right? Everybody's in bed and everybody's asleep, and now I can be me and relax and right, put the plates down, quit juggling balls, and maybe pick up the school ball though, right? That's when the school ball gets in or that plate gets picked up, right? That the school buffet is open at that point. The golden corral of science is right here. This is human anatomy and physiology. So yeah, you want to make sure you go to this buffet, frequently if you can. And like I said, bring your family with, man. They need to know this stuff too. Yeah, you're learning something that, like I say, is something that not a lot of folks have the opportunity to learn, especially quite in the way you guys will and are learning it. I also wanted to mention, and I sent out an announcement with it. It's simply earlier today. It simply just had a link to tutoring. Several of you have asked me about tutoring, and I want to emphasize that if you don't have to feel like you're struggling to get help from a tutor. In other words, if you're doing poorly, you may want a tutor. If you're doing excellent, you could still think I may need a tutor, especially this semester. You don't necessarily need to approach it as all of you need help to some degree. And the help that a lot of you may need is hands-on help, right? You may need to touch some models. You may need to see an actual model of a heart and models of bones. So if you, especially those of you in Elkhorn, or that Elkhorn's my base campus. So I know the folks at that campus that work in the Learning Success Center. And if you need face-to-face time, maybe not even with someone, but maybe with someone who can give you access to models to look at. Like if you could go to the Elkhorn campus and spend an hour either in the Learning Success Center, in a little cubicle by yourself with a bucket of bones, I can arrange that. That can happen. So don't feel like we all feel a little shafted. I know I do, by COVID and by the inconveniences of us not being able to be together. Because like I say, I thrive in person with this experience, and I know my students do too, but we're going to thrive in this experience and make it work. And one of the ways we can make it work is if you need to have that physical presence. I can arrange it. Just let me know. Email me or talk to me about it. I can make an email and a phone call to the Elkhorn campus, and we can get it. So you've got access to. You can make an appointment, go in and sit at a table in a little room in there and spread things out and have at it. So we have so many excellent tools at all of our campuses. And the reason I don't mention Racine or Kenosha is because I'm not sure. I think we could probably arrange something. So if those are campuses that make better sense for you, let me know. I can I'm part of the network. We can get it figured out. But Burlington, I don't think anything's happening there. I don't know. I know there's some nursing stuff going on over there, but anyway, I do know that if you want to go to the Elkhorn campus, we can make arrangements for you. And again, this doesn't necessarily matter at the moment because we're not yet to bones and muscles, but we have so many. My point was, we have so many amazing models that it's just a shame that this has happened the way it has, because those are extremely important tools. I set up a midterm and a final lab exam in the lab, where you go station to station and you hold bones and you put numbers next to what bone. I mean, if you go to my YouTube channel, those videos are in there. You'll see, I think I've got the midterm lab exam that I do in face-to-face is in there. But so anyway, I don't want to inhibit you from being able to access those items, because right now they're just collecting dust, and that's truly a shame. There are 50 of you with me, and I think John has another 50, so we've got at least 100 A&P students in General A&P just from the Elkhorn campus area in Burlington. So I don't know. Anyway, let me know as time goes on. I'm about 20 minutes from there. I can run over there, and I can get into the Learning Success Center and get everything set up on carts and in buckets, and because right now they're in the classrooms. I could even possibly make arrangements that you could go into the classroom. I doubt it, because they want you to be more monitored. Somebody would have to be in there with you, whereas somebody's always in the Learning Center. So I know they do have some stuff already in the Learning Center. She has bones and some other stuff there as it is, but I can make sure that we have more models and more stuff. Okay, so anyway, I don't want to belabor the point any more than I already have. So again, a reminder, please, if you haven't already, put your name in the chat, just so I don't record things to dock points or add points. I simply am monitoring who's here, and if when it comes, I have to do reports on attendance and stuff like that. So, and Ricardo, I'm glad you're here. I think it was you. You need to give me access to your homework. I think you did a Google Doc,
Yeah,
and
I
okay,
got
cool. So,
it. I think I'm not sure. I think it said share.
and you
So
click that, and okay,
Mhm.
so cool. I'll go back in there today, and I'll put a grade in. Thank
Hey,
you.
also I was wondering if I could get like the Google Docs link for the chemistry, because every time I try to make a copy of it, the boxed lines that separate the definitions. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
they disappear, and
Oh,
it makes the whole page look funky.
oh yeah, it's not in there, is it? It's just got the Word doc and the PDF. So yeah, let me put, oh wait a minute. I thought up here, the chemistry portfolio. Okay, that is a Google, well, it's gonna open like this, in this weird format here. But yeah, you should be able to open it as a Google Doc. That's what you need. You need the chemistry portfolio one as a Google Doc.
Yeah, I did not click that. I just clicked the PDF and
Oh, you were down, yeah, down here. Yeah, I didn't put the link in here. I should though. Yeah, I see where you're at. Yeah, if you're in the Dropbox, it's only going to have the Word doc and the PDF. So yeah, come back up into under the directions for this section. There's a hyperlink for the chemistry portfolio there. I'll go ahead and I'll add that to down in the Dropbox, just
okay.
so that doesn't inhibit. You guys, anybody else have any questions or comments or concerns? Okay, there it finally went. Copy the link, and then I'll just come over here and go into the portfolio. Oh, the interwebby thingy's moving slow tonight. It's probably this cold weather. It doesn't know how to behave. So let's see. Okay. So Google Doc, and then I'll highlight that. You guys get to see the inside scoop behind the scenes of the Blackboard instructor pages and how we do all of what we do. I shouldn't show you so you can see how really easy everything is. I'm teasing. It's really not easy. It took years to figure this thing out, by the way. I've been using Blackboard since 2006. It's been a long 14 years. I've seen this thing evolve. I didn't use it so much as an online. I mainly use it as a grade book so my students get access to their grades and face-to-face. And over the years, yeah, man, it's evolved to be pretty fancy. So there you go, Ricardo. That's also now in the portfolio too. Okay. Yep, you're welcome. Oh, I know. Oof. Yeah. It was like using dial-up internet. But it was kind of the ground, I don't know, the forefather of what these are called LMS, learning management systems. And Blackboard is kind of one of the frontiersmen or whatever. So, all right, you guys. Well, it's going to warm up a little bit this weekend, so stay warm and have fun. And I don't have much else for you today. If you need me to keep babbling, I can keep babbling. I can gaslight you some more, tell you how awesome you are, and you're the best class I've ever had. And it's true, partially. This is a really good group. My afternoon group and my evening groups, usually after the first week or two, I've got about half assignments in, half student. Can I get a hasn't been that way at all. It's been the majority of, I'd say about 80% of you have been logging in regularly, have been, because I can see that too. I can see last login dates and stuff like that. I can even, they have a breakdown of like clicking and not only last login, but how much time you're spending in Blackboard. I don't go that far. I'm not that nosy. I barely look at last login unless I haven't heard from you in a while. But yeah, this is an excellent group. So Alyssa, you have a great night too, and Lori, thank you guys for coming. I'm gonna actually stop recording the rest of this.